nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, members present this evening are myself, Mayor Marl, Council members Gearboss, CO, McClellan, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar, and Councilwoman Dillon. From City staff, we have City Manager Campbell, Clerk Royal, Treasurer Bennett, Police Chief Rennick, City Superintendent Engineer Rubel, as well as our Chief Legal Counsel Scott Smith. The rest of you who are in the audience this evening, if you'd please sign in the back to my left, we would appreciate that. At this time, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended, noting that new business item 17-91 will now become the first item under the new business section of our agenda. I would also note a small typo on new business item 17-88. It should read proposed budget for FY18, not FY17. And again, the Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Moved as amended.
Thank you, Councilmember CO. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McClellan. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. What about a motion to excuse the absence of Councilwoman Mitchell?
So moved.
Moved by Gearbaugh, and was that a second by Dillon?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor of excusing Councilwoman Mitchell, or excusing the absence of Councilwoman Mitchell, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We have two presentations on the agenda this evening. The first are police awards, and I welcome to the podium our Police Chief Larry Rennick. Larry, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Are you using the...
I am.
I will relocate that.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to do this. This is my fourth or fifth year to do this in front of City Council, and it's always a pleasure to give police awards out in front of Council. At your last meeting, Mayor Marl presented a signed resolution for Police Officer Memorial Week, which began yesterday, May 14th through May 20th, and that's in honor of all police officers who've paid the ultimate price throughout the United States. Some statistics to go along with that, which were not included in the resolution. In 2016, there were 144 line of duty deaths in the country. Of those, 63 were caused by gunfire. In Michigan alone, last year there were 7 line of duty deaths. This ranks Michigan 5th in the nation for the highest number of police officer deaths. Today, the city of Saline flies its flag at half-staff in honor of those brave souls who have given their very most for this country. Traditionally, the Saline Police Department gives out their awards here at the City Council meeting in May, and it just happens that today is Police Memorial Day. And what I would like to do is start with the first one, which is our Marksman of the Year. So Sergeant Andy Hartwick, if you'd come forward. Andy Hartwick is one of our firearms instructors, and he reluctantly is accepting this award. And the reason that is he felt that somebody who is not a firearms instructor deserved it. But after much debate with other officers on the department, we decided that because he was the top shot, and in fact no one else shot anywhere near him, that we needed to give him the award this year. So Andy, I'd like to give you the Marksman of the Year award. I apologize, I forgot to hand this out earlier.
Thank you.
What this does is this will give you a description of the awards that are, I think it's you too, the awards that are being given out and who is receiving those. For the audience, there are some of those in the back if you'd like to grab that as well. Our second award, Officer Michael Snook, if you'd come forward. On July 12th, 2016 at 9:19 in the morning, Officer Snook responded to a medical emergency in the 400 block of North Maple Road. Upon arrival, Officer Snook found a 49-year-old male lying motionless on the floor. Officer Snook checked the victim. Not finding a pulse, Mike immediately began performing CPR. He continued until he was relieved by EMS personnel. The victim survived the emergency and is walking around today as a result of Mike's actions. Officer Snook is credited with saving the victim's life. He is receiving a life-saving award and a ribbon to wear on his uniform. Mike, congratulations. The next one is a little longer, as you'll see by the list of names. On September 30th, 2016, at 3:51 in the afternoon, officers responded to a man holding a gun to his head, threatening suicide. Officers Ringe, Snook, and Bolter arrived on the scene and quickly spoke with the gunman's wife, gaining valuable information about the gunman and his location. Officer Snook then made contact with the gunman using a cell phone. Dispatchers Farnsworth and Seams handled all the incoming calls and the concerns and questions that were being routed their way by the phone and by the radio. Sergeant Mag was just arriving for his shift at 4 o'clock, so he headed to the location and took command of the incident. Officer Jeff Flynn, a trained negotiator, was called to the scene to assist with the negotiations. He remained with Officer Snook and provided assistance as needed. Jeff stated Officer Snook was doing such a great job with the negotiation that rather than to introduce a new negotiator, he decided to allow Officer Snook to continue with the negotiation. Officers Ringe, Bolter, and Hoffman secured a perimeter and kept citizens in their homes and out of harm's way. Both a difficulty and a blessing of that day was that the department was changing shifts at 4 o'clock, which added to extra personnel certainly being available, but the confusion between changing dispatchers and changing personnel. I was contacted by phone and arrived on the scene a short time later and was briefed by Sergeant Mag. Steve was recently promoted to sergeant, and he was handling the event with such perfection, I decided to let him remain in charge rather than taking command. Sergeant Mag requested Metro SWAT for assistance. Shortly after the arrival and deployment of Metro SWAT, the gunman indicated on the phone that he would surrender. Officer Snook had spoken on the phone with the suspect for over 4 hours and was instrumental in finally convincing the gunman to surrender. The gunman exited his home with his hands over his head and was taken into protective custody without injury. He was transported to the hospital where he was petitioned for his admittance. The incident lasted over 5 hours, and each person involved performed their duties admirably. During a debriefing with SWAT a short time later, our members were thanked for a job well done without any thought of how we would have done things differently. This was a job that was done with perfection. For their actions in carrying out a valuable service to the department and community, if you'd please come forward, Officer Dave Ringe, Officer Chris Bolter, Officer Jeff Flynn, Officer Chris Hoffman, Dispatcher Leah Farnsworth, and Dispatcher Terry Seams are hereby awarded a letter of commendation. And because of their extra actions, which clearly shows these officers performed a duty under unusual or difficult conditions involving unusual thoroughness, conscientiousness, determination, and initiative, Sergeant Steve Mag and Officer Mike Snook are being awarded the Certificate of Merit and a ribbon to be worn on their uniforms. Gentlemen. Apparently they're shy. On August 20th, 2016 at 5:25 in the evening, Officer Christopher Hoffman observed the immediate aftermath of a vehicular crash at US 12 in Hopper. The at-fault vehicle, unit number 1, was heavily damaged and smoke was coming from the engine. However, the vehicle was continuing to move westbound at a slow rate of speed. This is in the officer's own words, so when I say the word I, I'm speaking as if I were Officer Hoffman. I activated my emergency lights and used the PA to instruct the driver to pull over. The vehicle continued to travel, but I could hear the driver screaming, "Help, I can't stop, help me." The vehicle at this point was traveling west in the eastbound lane approaching Kevling. There was heavy traffic at the time and pedestrians at the Dairy Queen further up the road. Beyond the Dairy Queen, US 12 merged down into one lane due to road construction. Because of this information, I believed if I did not take immediate action, there was the high probability of the vehicle either hitting another car, pedestrian, or the engine catching on fire with the driver inside. As we approached Kevling, I pulled alongside the unit and yelled at the driver to hit the rear of my patrol vehicle. I then pulled in front of the unit and matched its speed. After matching its speed, I slowly decelerated until my vehicle and unit number 1 made contact. Once contact was made, I continued decelerating until both units came to a complete stop. Once I stopped both vehicles, I got the driver out of unit number 1 and got in her vehicle and was able to shut off the engine. For his selfless actions, putting himself at risk while likely saving others from injury, Officer Chris Hoffman is being awarded the department's highest local award, the Department Citation, and a ribbon to wear on his uniform. And what I would like to do is I'd like to have his sergeant, which would be Sergeant Hardwick, I believe, come forward and accept on his behalf. He's on 3rd shift and couldn't be here this evening. And then I'd like to end this with a short video that I think is very touching. It talks, well, I think it'll explain itself. So if somebody could dim the lights completely, that would be great.
Dear officer, I want you to know that I see you. I see you choose the booth in the restaurant that allows you to have your back against the wall. I see you pulled over 2 hours past your shift as you finish your reports under a streetlight. I see you as you direct traffic in the scorching heat, the gusting snow, and the downpour of rain. I see you as you watch mainstream media crucify your character while minimizing your cause. I see that you are tired, frustrated, and misunderstood. I see that you are hurting as the world watches you bury your brothers and sisters that died because they were guilty of one thing: wearing a uniform with a badge. I see you. I see that you are flesh and bones just like me. I see your cause, and I want you to know that I appreciate it. I hear you. I hear the sound of the garage door open after a long night of consistent tragedy. I hear the sounds of your heavy footsteps, and I can instantly tell what kind of day it has been for you. I hear the sound of your duty belt hit the kitchen table as you relieve your back from the 30 extra pounds you've been carrying all day. I recognize the sound of Velcro as you unstrap your body armor and your work boots. I hear the sound of your little boy's bedroom door open as you enter his room. I hear the sound of you kissing his cheek and whispering that you love him. I hear the sound of your heartbeat as you choose not to share your day because you know that it will only scare me. And even though you do not speak, I still hear you. I still know that something happened on your shift that has broken your heart. I feel you. I feel the difference in the way you hug me before you leave to go to the grocery store and the way you hug me before you leave for one more night on your beat. I feel the grip of your hand as they wheel you back to surgery to fix an injury you have sustained on the job. I feel the wetness of your tears as you try to make sense of the tiny life that was taken by the hands of her parents. I feel the sigh of relief when you see your little boy running towards you after you've experienced too much darkness in the world. I feel the sinking of your morale as you watch a very vocal and sparse opposition flood social media with their misplaced passion for their idea of justice. I feel the way you look at me as you read that one more of your brothers or sisters have fallen victim to a hate crime. We both know it could have been you. I need you. We need you. I know the world is making you feel like the only allies you have can be found in each other. I know that it is becoming increasingly more difficult for you to put your life on the line for a world that has seemingly turned their backs on you. But I also know that won't stop you. What the world seems to forget is that you don't suit up every day for their approval. God knows you don't do it for the money. You do it because it's your calling. You do it because you believe that you can help goodness persevere in the face of evil. You've chosen to be a warrior, and warriors don't hang up their hats because of the opinion of someone else. I wish I knew how to fix it. The only thing I know how to do is support you. I'm aware that there isn't a magic solution that will make the world see you for who you are. I just want you to know that I see you. I need you to know that you are appreciated by a vast majority who is in your corner. You are honorable. You are courageous. You are worthy of a nation's support. We see you. We hear you. We love you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for getting up one more day to protect my family. You are undeniably my heroes.
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to do this once again this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Rennick. I would note, for the record, special congratulations to all the award recipients from the Saline Police Department, and to each and every officer, dispatcher, and to our office manager as well. We appreciate and are indebted to you for your service, so thank you very much. Linda, is the arts presentation need to be completed?
I don't think so.
Oh.
Should be brief.
Okay, we have a second presentation this evening, Art Around Saline, and we have some representatives, including the chair of our Arts and Culture Commission. Ladies, we thank you. We welcome you here this evening. Appreciate your time.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Baxter. I'm the chairperson of the Arts and Cultural Committee, and Kathy Crone and Marcy Cameron and I and the whole Arts and Cultural Committee, thank you for letting us speak tonight. We have a brand new program in the city of Saline. It's called Art Around Saline. It was initiated by the Arts and Cultural Committee, and it's a joint project with the Saline Main Street. 4 large framed prints are in the process of being installed on the exterior walls of Saline's downtown businesses this week. The goals of the new and unique project are to enhance and promote public art within the city of Saline, highlight the work of local artists, and increase and enhance pride in our city and growing art culture. Art Around Saline is a program specifically targeted to promote local artists. 25 original works were submitted by 12 artists for the juried competition. The selected works will remain on public display for a year. The plan is for an annual competition with rotating pieces and additional sites. The 4 artists of the selected artworks and their locations are Sutherland Wilson Farm by Sandra DeFazio at the Pineapple House, Birds of a Feather No. 3 by Kay Castle at Max Arcadian Seafood, Golden Light by Jill Stefani Wagner at the Grossman Building, and The Great Egret by Nancy Murray at the Brecken Grill. We'd like to thank the property owners, the business managers for their help with installation of this display, Saline Main Street Design Team, and their participation in the jurying process, and Bruce Westlake and myself for building the frames, and Bruce and Ron Ely for installation. Initial press release has been sent out, and a follow-up article is going to be happening soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our guests? No. Ladies, thank you very much. I haven't noticed, I've only noticed one of the 4 pieces. I noticed the one at,
so far.
Yeah, I noticed the one on the, what would that be, the west side of Pineapple House, but it's very attractive. So, wonderful initiative. Thank you for your work on this. We move on to citizen comments on agenda items. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward and make a comment or question on an item that appears on this agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record. Are there any citizen comments? Please, Mrs. Hess.
Mary Hess. I notice on your agenda, as a city taxpayer for a long time, there is a lot of expenses that will be passed on to the city taxpayer tonight. We have apparently a projected income of $9 million and a half, and spending about that. But we also, through City Council, has levied a lot of $1 million on the sewer plant and now on the rec center. Many of us won't be here to pay off these bills that you're doing tonight. And I ask you, as a city taxpayer, to try and have other people take on some of this burden as far as our rec center, and that being the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. Are there additional citizen comments on agenda items?
John Olson, Saline Area Chamber of Commerce. I just want to comment on the proposed alteration to the height restrictions for hotels. I know this has come up a lot of times here, and I've been going around to other communities and looking at the options, and you know, the bottom line comes down to for a hotel to financially survive, it has to have a critical mass of rooms. So you're basically starting with a certain number of rooms, and if you have one floor or if you have 2 floors, you do end up with a sprawling building. I think 3 floors kind of compacts it down. I think it's a good compromise, and I hope that City Council will move that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson.
Matt Rockwell, same thing. I think that it's not a good idea to still have this hotel. I think that we should send it back to the prior committee to look at it again, because it's just not feasible where it's going to be. And I have got that information from a lot of different people that work over in that area.
Thank you, Mr. Rockwell. Additional citizen comments? No, then we'll proceed to the consent agenda. The following consent agenda will normally be adopted without discussion. However, at the request of any citizen or council member, any item may be removed from the consent agenda for council discussion.
Move to approve as submitted.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar to approve as submitted, and seconded by, was that Councilman Seal?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as submitted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to public hearing, item 17-84. This is special assessment for fire protection. First motion will be a motion to open the public hearing, allowing members of the public to speak to this issue.
Move to open.
Moved by Councilmember Gearbaugh to open the public hearing. Was that seconded by McClellan?
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. At, let's say, 7:59. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion passes. Public hearing is now open, affording anyone who would like to speak to the special fire special assessment. I butchered that, excuse me. If you'd like to speak regarding the fire special assessment, you're welcome to come to the podium at this time.
I'll move to close, as there's no one here.
Move to close by Councilmember Gearbaugh at 8 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Let McClellan be the second again. I'll get you on the next one, Ms. Dillon. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Public hearing is now closed. The final motion will be a motion to approve and adopt or not to adopt resolution number 2, special assessment for fire protection, 2017 to 2018, approving the estimated amount at $416,251 for fire protection for fiscal year 2017-2018.
I move to approve and adopt.
Thank you, Councilmember Gearbaugh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dillon. Treasurer Bennett, any comment? No, not unless there are questions. Questions from the dais? Any comments? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's easy enough. It's been moved by Gearboss, seconded by Dillon to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on now to new business, and note that we changed the order here, so we'll consider item 17-91, awarding of bid for rec center roof. This will be a motion to acknowledge the May 11th, 2017 memo from City Manager Campbell, and to approve or not to approve the professional services proposal from Mays in the amount of $159,200, and to approve or not to approve a new metal panel color, and to authorize or not authorize the mayor to sign the agreement upon review and approval by the city attorney.
Move to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. I would leave out that middle one about approving or not approving a new metal panel color.
That seems appropriate.
Second.
So let me, all right, so it's going to be moved by CO, seconded by McClellan. Let me reread the motion then for the benefit of the council and just to make sure I got it right. All right, Mr. CO?
Please.
And Ms. McClellan, who is the second. To acknowledge receipt of the May 11th, 2017 memo from City Manager Campbell, and to approve the professional services proposal from Mays in the amount of $159,200, and to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement upon review and approval by the city attorney. Is that correct, sir?
Precisely.
Good, okay. Who wishes to make a comment? Ms. Scruggs, of course, we talked about this at the work session, but perhaps you could give a 2-3 minute overview for the benefit of those who will be either reading about this meeting or perhaps even watching it at home.
Certainly. What we're seeking tonight is to approve a contract with Mays. And we've been working with them on the design to reconstruct the roof, basically not just the roof, but the whole building envelope. And what they have suggested is that, or they've prepared contract plans and specifications, and they've given us a cost estimate on the total project. We've been given some options because we know that the entire metal perimeter of the building that currently is that maroon color will need to be replaced, thus giving us an opportunity to change the color if we choose to. So essentially, we're looking for requests for them to move forward with the entire professional services proposal, which would also include a full services for observing the entire process. I think that's
it in a nutshell.
Yeah,
Okay.
in a nutshell, that's what we're looking at.
And I do want to thank, we have Mr. Mays and Mr. Lawrence from Mays Consulting. We appreciate you being here, gentlemen. Ms. Scruggs, this is rhetorical, but of course will be based on the modification that Councilmember CO made to the proposed motion. We'll be having a future discussion regarding the color of the metal panel.
Correct.
And then per your remarks at the work session, we look forward to hearing a presentation from you in the coming months about new strategies to generate additional revenue, and at the same time encouraging more people to use the facility to maintain a healthy lifestyle, which should be the goal of every leader in the city of Saline.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Are there questions for Director Scruggs? Mr. CO.
Not a question, just a statement, if you will, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The reason I moved this was that I've been very impressed with the Mays Corporation and the representatives who've been here. Their technical expertise, their analysis of the problem, their proposal for a temporary solution to the problem to keep the roof on the place while we came up with a permanent solution to the difficulties with that building, and now their willingness to go forward as a monitor and to assume the responsibility and perhaps any potential liability, if you will, for what goes on during the reconstruction of that. So I heartily move this forward because I think it's something that needs to be done in a timely manner. I do recognize that the public has talked about having perhaps us approach the county about additional funding. I think that's a valid recommendation, and I would like to see somebody do that even while this is an ongoing process, so that we can at least say that we made the attempt, whether or not we're successful. I also want to say that I took out the color portion because I don't feel like an arbiter of design. And as was pointed out by one of my other fellow council people, perhaps my judgment wouldn't be as suitable as some others who have more professional training in that regard. So,
Certainly.
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Care to make any comment on that? No. Okay, very good. Additional questions? Or comments? Mr. Gearbaugh?
Just one, and I forgot to ask it at our work meeting. It mentions about the replacement of the natatorium windows, just new storefront windows. What does that mean?
I believe
Please.
Dan can probably answer that a little.
Because I know one of my concerns was make sure we cover everything that we can in this construction, so I want
Right.
to understand this.
The only windows that we're going to replace are the windows that are fully within the metal wall panels areas, because in order to properly flash those windows, you would need to remove them anyways, install the metal panels, the flashing, and then reinstall them. They're already old windows. I find that contractors do not like removing and reinstalling old windows because they don't want to buy that liability with that. So that's why we recommend just to replace those windows. That way you've already paying to remove them and reinstall them, so the only additional cost is to actually purchase new windows.
Thank
So
you.
those are actually only in the gym,
Those are only in the gym on the, is that the south end of the building?
south side of the building.
All the rest of the windows are going to remain as is. We don't need to remove those because the metal panels stop at the top of the windows, and we do not have to remove
There's no
those.
windows on the south.
North side of the building, sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, because it says, the category says natatorium windows, so I wanted to make sure
There's
that,
no windows there.
Yeah, north side of the building, they're up high in the metal
I
flat.
just want to make sure it wasn't that wall of windows that is near the pool, so, okay. No, I appreciate that, because that was my concern, that if we started ripping this stuff off and we had the opportunity to fix the windows that are 25 years old, to make sure we do this at this time, not to have a cost in the future.
Right.
Okay. The only other statement that I have is, one of my concerns is that this is a large amount that we're not bidding out. We are bidding out the construction costs, but not the bid to the, I guess we'd say the design and the oversight. As I was explained by our attorney, city attorney, that because of the emergency and so forth, that this seems reasonable, and I agree. I think we've done a great overview of what we need to have repaired and fixed at this point in time. I mean, the only opportunity for us, other option for us would be to not do the work and jeopardize potentially even more damage or such to the
Correct.
building. Where I am concerned, and I would like to make sure, is that I think at this point, hiring this individual that we think is going to be there to inspect it all over the entire time of the construction is a good idea. It's an expensive idea, but having known that oversight was a major problem in the last two projects where roofs failed or the building wasn't done right, I believe this is an opportunity for us to make sure that we are doing it. What I expect is to have those reports to council on a weekly basis or every other meeting week, so that we understand exactly what's happening and to see the progress on it. I'll feel more comfortable from that perspective, paying this kind of money to make sure that we are seeing it progress the way we want it to progress.
That would be very doable.
I know it's kind of micromanaging, but I've let it go on in the past, and I'm not doing it this time.
No, I don't think it's micromanaging, considering the importance and the complexity of the issue, Mr. Gearbaugh, as well as the cost that we're incurring. So unless there's objection from the dais, in addition to discussing this, and we will continue to discuss this issue at upcoming council meetings, when the work begins, I will instruct the city manager to include a portion of his weekly communique on the roof issue at the rec center. I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. Be a good way to proactively communicate the progress of the project to City Council.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions or comments? No, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by McClellan, to acknowledge, to approve, and to authorize. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 17-85. This is proposed ordinance number 790, hotel height restrictions. This will be a motion to acknowledge the May 11th, 2017 memo from the Saline Planning Commission and to approve and adopt, or not to approve, proposed ordinance number 790, an ordinance to amend section 4.03 of the zoning ordinance to allow hotels to have 3 stories.
Move to acknowledge, to approve, and adopt.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Seal. Mr. Rubel, do you care to make any comment? It's pretty self-explanatory, but why don't you come to the podium?
Happy to answer questions if you need a recap.
Okay, and we do have one of the applicants, Mr. Kirkendall, in the audience this evening. Mark, we appreciate you being here. Are there any questions for, actually, before I open it up to for questions, perhaps, Mr. Gearbaugh, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I thought Planning Commission had two very thoughtful, robust discussions on this issue. We didn't make a knee-jerk reaction. We discussed it at one meeting and then took action at the subsequent. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
No, I think what we did was the presentation for it gave us the idea of what type of height was needed, and the request was a little bit more than what it was, but we kind of compromised on it and basically put it into a series of what we currently have. I believe it's 35, 45, and 55, and the 55 allowed for that additional height for the third floor. And because it is in a SPA1 zone, and in the area, it's really restricted to just that particular area, so this does not affect the rest of town. It would require another review if we ever have this issue arise, or even in the downtown. So from the perspective of following the recommendations and the process, I think we've done this properly.
Thank you. And as the memo states, there was I believe there was an abstention, actually. I think that's incorrect on the minutes. I think Mr. Troik actually abstained, and he did state that for the public record. My point is not his abstention. My point is that while there were two absences, the vote was unanimous, and at the previous meeting when the item was discussed, I don't recall, and Mr. Gearbaugh can correct me on this, I don't recall any of the planning commissioners voicing any objections or concerns. We thought that the outcome or the compromise that we made was reasonable and appropriate and had some continuity with the existing policies.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that the height was reasonable within what we saw, and I think it is.
Very good. Questions for Mr. Rubel? Ms. Tahar?
I have actually just a comment on the addition. I appreciate the fact, which is why I moved the approval, appreciate the fact that this is not just an automatic thing, that everything still needs to be reviewed by the Planning Commission and approved by City Council. So it's not simple sort of blanket approval for three-story hotels, but still goes through the entire review process.
Correct.
Oh, just one comment. One of our concerns was potentially that, that the 55 include the full height, and not where in some cases you may have a penthouse above it or whatever. So this is full height, not that there's another 10 feet on top for any kind of decremental or such decorational aspect. So it keeps it within that round.
Thank you for that. Thank you for noting that. Additional questions or comments? Then we will proceed to vote. If there's nothing further, it's been properly moved by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar, seconded by Councilmember Seo, to acknowledge receipt and to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you. Appreciate your attendance, Mark. We move on to new business item 17-86. This is Swisher Commercial Realty Agreement Renewal. This will be a motion to acknowledge the May 8, 2017 memo from City Manager Campbell and to approve or not to approve the request to renew the Swisher Commercial Realty Agreement for another 12 months.
I'll move to acknowledge for discussion.
Okay, moved by Gearbaugh to acknowledge receipt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dillon. Mr. Campbell, do you want to comment on your memo of May 8th?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Caparisi's here. If you probably want to come up and possibly make some comments or answer some questions. But so you may recall, I believe was it May of 13 was the first. So this will be the fourth extension as Mr. Caparisi has been representing the city properties. And those first couple of years, you may recall, again, as the economy was trying to get going, and these last couple of years, there's certainly been some more movement, and of course, we're in the middle of the Zippy's car wash, as well as the hotel project slash hardware store. I mean, staff is recommending to extend for another 12 months. I think with the economy moving in the right direction, at least it has been. We'll see if it slows down, but that there has been some activity, and certainly has been positive. It's been beneficial to work with Tony to help represent the city as not just marketing, but also as we go through the process when we do, work towards purchase agreements and then also work through projects to get them all the way through. So outside of that, if there's any questions for myself or for Mr. Caparisi.
Tony, before I open up for any questions, do you care to make any comment?
Yeah, I think this year has been kind of a landmark year for the marketing of the city-owned properties. I think everyone's worked really hard the past 12, 14 months, including council, on a lot of different activities related to primarily the Salt Commons, or the Salt Trail, 17 acres along Michigan Avenue. But the initial project last year at this time that we were just kicking off and then subsequently finalized our first contract, and that was for the Maple Oaks project at 600 North Maple. I don't want to rehash much of what these projects are about, because all of you are obviously intimately familiar with a lot of the details that have now surfaced throughout the planning processes, the site planning processes, and so forth. But we've had, I think, a tremendous year, and really, I think a lot of credit goes to not only council, but to City Manager Campbell. Certainly, City Attorney Mr. Smith has been an excellent resource throughout these projects to negotiate really excruciating details of each of these different projects. They're all unique in their own way. They're all complicated in their own way in terms of different challenges facing the developers, facing the city in terms of how these properties get parceled out. Land subdivisions are involved. And so, following the Maple Oaks project, we then came in last summer with the offer and subsequent negotiations for the hotel and the Ace Hardware store, and then following that with the Zippy's Car Wash. So as of today, I know that I talked to Bill Godfrey, the principal with the Maple Oaks project. They plan on submitting for final site plan approval, or their final site plan this week. They had originally planned on doing that last week, but there were some delays. They're hoping they can get through that final site plan approval process, and that will require additional approvals from council, because my understanding it's a PUD, and so they'll have to come back to council for those final approvals. That project's been in the works for over 2 years, and the old saying, time is money for these developers, and I know they've been selling the heck out of these single-family residences as well as the condo units that are very unique for that project. They have future homeowners that are chomping at the bit. So I know the folks at Three Oaks, or the Maple Oaks project people, are anxious to get through the final approvals and break ground. They're hoping by July, certainly August, maybe at the latest. Zippy's Car Wash, as we speak, as we're talking now, I submitted, I think they'll go before the Planning Commission for final site plan approval on May 24th. They have a few, I think, MDOT approvals to finalize. They're now working on the final land subdivision for parcels 18A and 19A and 20A, which were formerly lots 18, 19, and 20. I talked to Corey Weaver this morning. They're also very anxious to hopefully finalize this, and they'll probably, and I always hesitate to talk about closings because I tend to be a little superstitious in that regard, but they're hoping to close in the very near future and move forward with breaking ground and bringing that project up out of the ground. So again, those 3 projects themselves consumed the majority of the past 12 and even prior to the past 12 months. With the opening of the Imagine movie theater, that end of town has become really just is blossoming, with activity, and certainly that parking lot at Asphalt in the Salt Commons has never seen so many vehicles parked in the lot. And with the enthusiasm and the anticipation of the future hotel, that's going to be a nice, I think, cluster area of both retail, entertainment, hospitality, hotel, and so forth. And so there has been that has stimulated some additional interest in Lot 20, As you know, Lot 20 is going to be slightly larger than what, excuse me, Lot 20A will be now slightly larger than what Lot 20 will be because of the subdivision of Lot 19. But there's been some interesting inquiries, and there's been some not so interesting inquiries, folks expressing or at least inquiring as to what that parcel is all about. And I've had to do some screening of some calls in that regard, but also looking potentially, my personal preference, would like to see some sort of a sit-down restaurant venue. I think would complement the hotel and the movie theater nicely, but you know, I can't predict or dictate that, obviously. But certainly, I think, you know, in the coming year, we're hopeful and likely to see maybe some more interest in that Lot 20A. As for the industrial properties, the outlook has not been that great. You know, really, most of the existing industrial buildings that have been available over the past half dozen years have now been purchased or leased up. We may be on the verge of seeing some. Well, we're actually seeing some owner user type construction of industrial properties starting to come up out of the ground. Certainly no spec buildings at this point, but we have had inquiries. There's a number of those lots have geographic limitations, wetlands, creeks running through them, railroad tracks. And so it's going to continue to be a selective process to find the right fit for an end user, most likely, who will come to us and want to do a project. So we have had some folks kicking the tires, have gone as far as worked with getting quotes from a couple of different contractors as to what it would cost to build a particular type of use on a couple of those parcels. Building costs are quite expensive these days. So between the cost of the land and the construction cost and the types of end users, just haven't been up to snuff in terms of being able to really foot the bill in terms of what it's going to cost to build on any of those parcels. If any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, let's open it up for questions for either Mr. Caparisi or for the city manager. Mr. Gearbaugh, did you have some questions?
Yeah, actually, mine was for Mr. Campbell. Just
Please.
a question. What are the current commission rates that we're charging on this? We didn't change them when we rezoned the property, the commercial property on Michigan Avenue, which I think we should have.
It's still currently 10%. Is the commission?
It's 8 and 10.
8,
It's 10% if another outside broker brings the buyer. It's 8% if it's handled within myself.
Okay. My concern was that I think we should have renegotiated for that Michigan Avenue property and reduced the rate, but that's something council can consider. Normally, when you have property that's sellable, which it was, we would have reassigned and renegotiated something, but I guess we didn't do that. So I'm asking at this point whether or not that would be something we should do.
Additional questions? Any comments?
Is Mr. Gearbaugh looking for action?
Well,
or
actually, we've
discussion,
got Mr. Seal.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just a comment, and that is that I'm actually in favor of going forward with the approval of this, and I will be happy to make that motion following this motion, because I think there's a certain amount of synergy that comes from having the same firm represent us, and you, Mr. Caparisi, as the representative of that firm. You're familiar with what we've been doing, what's going on. You've been the person who's been sort of in the driver's seat on all of this, and I see no reason not to continue with your service. I think you've served us well, especially since I've been at this dais. So thank you.
Well, let's proceed with voting on the motion. It's been moved, I believe, by Gearbaugh, seconded by Dillon, to simply acknowledge receipt of the May 8th, 2017 memo. All those in favor of acknowledging receipt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Mr. Seo, did you want to offer then a motion to approve?
I would move to approve.
Okay, it's been moved by Seo to approve the request to renew the Swisher Commercial Realty Agreement for another 12 months. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Tahar. Discussion. No discussion, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Tahar to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on.
Thank you.
Caparisi, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this evening. We move on to new business item 17-87. This is millage rate for FY18 General Appropriation Act. This is our budget. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the May 10th, 2017 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough regarding consideration of the millage for fiscal year 18 General Appropriations Act, and to direct staff to utilize the millage rate for fiscal year 2017-2018 as 16.2800 mils, which I will note is the same as the current fiscal year. Is there a motion to acknowledge receipt?
Move to acknowledge.
Thank you, Mr. CO. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Dillon. Pretty self-explanatory, but does anybody from the Treasurer's Office care to make a comment? No? Okay. Questions? Discussion? No, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by CO, seconded by Dillon to acknowledge receipt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 17-88. This is proposed budget for fiscal year 18. Scheduling of the public hearing. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the May 10th, 2017 memo, from Deputy Treasurer McDonough, and to approve and adopt or not to adopt the resolution as submitted, setting a public hearing on the proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 on Monday, June 5th, 2017 at 7:30, with public notices to be given according to the law.
Move to acknowledge, to approve and adopt.
Second.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar to acknowledge, to approve, and adopt, and seconded by Councilman Gearbaugh. This is a formality, but staff, do you have any comment? Again, it's pretty straightforward. No? Any questions or comments from the dais? Then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved and seconded to acknowledge, to approve, and to adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to new business item 17-89. This is establishment of the Saline Community Foundation Work Group. This will be a motion to approve or not to approve Mayor Marl's recommendation to establish the Saline Community Foundation Work Group, and to authorize or not authorize the appointment of candidates listed to that work group. Is there a motion?
Move to approve and authorize?
Moved by McClellan to approve and authorize. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Tahar. My memo of May the 8th is pretty self-explanatory. As I've stated on numerous occasions in the past, I think exploring and researching the establishment of a community foundation is in this city's best interest. This is an affluent, but more importantly, a giving community, and I think it's something that needs to be explored. I will note that I've had a number of conversations in recent weeks with interested parties and individuals who have a perspective on this, and I think there's opportunity for collaboration and partnering, with some existing entities. But I'm really pleased with the people who have agreed to serve on this work group. I think they represent various constituencies and interest groups within the community, and I'm very pleased that some of our council colleagues will be taking a leadership role in this work group, specifically Councilwoman Mitchell, who has agreed to serve as chair, and Councilwoman McClellan, who's agreed to serve as vice chair. With that, again, I think my memo is pretty direct and to the point, but I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have. No questions. Any discussion? Mr. Gearbaugh.
20 years ago, when I first was on council, there really wasn't any foundations in the city that supported things, and now I think we have quite a few. CQC, Saline Main Street, Saline Area Foundation. I think we're getting to the point where we have a lot of different foundations. I don't disagree that Saline could use a foundation. I'm just not positive that the city should be the one providing resources and so forth to get this going. My concern is having more staff time assigned to something of this nature, which could take quite a bit, when I've got concerns of the ability for staff to achieve their workloads as they have now. And this last week kind of recently showed me some of that in terms of the website. So although I think this is a good idea, I just don't think this should be something that the city at this time should be taking on.
I appreciate those comments. I emphatically disagree, and I actually think this will be more citizen-driven, with leadership being provided by two of our council colleagues. I don't know if I mentioned it in the memo, but it is one thing that I've discussed with a number of individuals, including Mr. John Olson, when I first proposed this idea some time ago. Your point is well taken that there are a number of existing foundations and not-for-profits in the community, and we certainly don't want to detract from the important work that they do, so that there is some finesse that is required in all this. But again, I think the establishment of a community foundation in a affluent giving community is in our strategic interest. And I would also note that it could fund and support a whole host of initiatives and projects that have a direct impact on our citizens' quality of life. So again, this isn't a recommendation. This isn't establishing the infrastructure. It's simply providing a forum for some really dedicated community members to get together and research this topic. Is there anything further? Ms. Tahar.
Yeah, a question. So in your memo, you mentioned and surrounding municipalities. So are you thinking, what municipalities are you thinking about? What are you thinking, the boundaries of the school district, or?
Probably the boundaries of the school district.
Okay. So have you spoken with any of the, for example, Pittsfield Township or any of the other townships about this effort and about how they might participate in it at this point, or?
I have had some casual conversations in the past. Subsequent to the establishment of this work group, if it's established, I would be working with the work group's leadership to reach out to some of those people. One of the things, and it's not directly stated in the memo, but at the same time it's not discouraged or prohibited, is there will be opportunity, and there should be efforts made to engage with some regional stakeholders that are not represented on the work group. So, i.e., our neighboring municipalities, specifically York Charter Township, Pittsfield Charter Township, as well as Saline and Lodi.
Okay, good. I think that would be really important.
Additional discussion. Ms. McClellan.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment to that too, that I think establishing the work group is the first course of action, and then, the idea about the work group is to, kind of vet all that out, get all that information that you can from other municipalities, from other foundations that are very successful in the area, and why they're successful and what they do, and making sure that we're not competing with them, but how we can all kind of work together and establish something, if it seems to be that the work group comes to that conclusion. So I'm looking forward to serving on this.
Very good. Additional comments? Ms. Dillon.
I have to say that I agree with Mr. Gerhart that right now I think that staff time would be better spent elsewhere. A work group is, I think, more of a commitment than a board. That's the driving force, getting something going. It's going to take a lot of labor and love to figure out a plan to make it actually work. And I don't see that our staff really should be utilizing their time in this way.
Well, respectfully, I wish you would have contacted me in advance of tonight's meeting to share your concerns and your questions. I'll note again that there is one staff member who plays a direct and formal role on this work group, and that would be our city treasurer, who will serve as the staff liaison. Myself and the city manager will serve as ex officios and participate when we have time. Ex officio is defined as somebody who has a voice and is able to participate but does not vote. And again, the leadership of the group is two of our council colleagues who I think will do an outstanding job. And again, I'll note for the record, both of them volunteered after being approached by me to serve in this capacity, and I think they're very eager to serve in this capacity. So again, I think that this effort is necessary and hopefully will produce something tangible and beneficial to the community. Is there anything further? Then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Show of hands, please. All those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. We move on to new business item 17-90. This is setting the water and sewer rates. This will be a motion to acknowledge receipt of the April 28, 2016 memo from Deputy Treasurer McDonough and to approve and adopt or not to adopt the resolution for water and sewer rates effective June 1, 2017. Is there a motion?
Move to, is it approve and?
Approve and adopt and acknowledge.
Ditto. I'm looking to see where I am.
It's been moved by Gearboss to acknowledge and to approve and adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tahar. Ms. McDonough, do you care to make any comment? Okay, is there questions for city staff? No questions? Okay, thanks, Joanne. Any subsequent discussions? Excuse me. Mr. Gearboss?
Just a comment. Appreciate Joanne's work on all of this, because the idea of smoothing this out a little bit more, I think, would make it more a little appetizing, although we know rates are going to go up, but at least we're trying to be progressive in how we're handling our fees and so forth. Thank you.
Additional discussion? Ms. Tahar?
Just ditto. Thank you to Ms. McDonough, and I especially appreciated that the memo answered all of the questions that came up at the last discussion. Thank you.
Anything else? Well, again, Ms. McDonough, you with everything you do an outstanding job. We appreciate your work on this. I raised and articulated some concerns at the last work meeting. I actually stand behind those. I would assume that, well, I think it should be assumed that I stand behind them. So I will be voting no on this, but again, I do appreciate your work on this, and I'm assuming that it will pass because council did express its approval at our last work meeting. Okay. Is there anything further? No, then we'll proceed to vote. It's been properly moved by Gearboss, seconded by Tahar to approve and adopt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Nay. Ayes have it, and the motion carries. We move on to, actually that's it for new business. We move on to the discussion portion of our agenda. First up is commission, committee, and task force reports from council members. Ms. McClellan, please.
Yeah, just want to remind everyone that tomorrow night, 7 p.m., the Parks Commission will meet, and we will be discussing the People's Park parking plan. So if you have opinions, thoughts, things you'd like to share, please come to that, and we will be working on that plan. So.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. I did mention to Director Scruggs, prior to tonight's meeting that I think we'll have a public comment period at both the beginning and end to ensure that our citizens and interested parties have a voice. Yep. And again, I want to note for the record, Ms. McClellan, of course, I'll be there to comment, but we don't want to make the Parks Commission feel rushed. We want you to make a really thoughtful, intelligent decision. So if it requires you delaying action until June or July, I think that would be appropriate.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Additional commission, committee, or task force reports?
Oh, just one other one.
Please.
That the youth council met last Tuesday, and elected their board or their chair people for next year. I'm trying to remember what their names are, and I don't think I can at the moment. But we have 2 graduating seniors this year, which will be moving on. Jason Lowe is going to the University of Michigan, and Austin Bellinger is going to a business school in Virginia. So we thank them for their service, and I'm looking forward to next year's crew. If there are any freshmen or sophomores or even juniors, although we have a pretty good crew of juniors that are interested in serving on that council for next year, please contact me or Melissa McCabe, who's our chairperson for next year.
Very good. Excellent. Additional committee, commission, or task force reports from council members. How about reports or other announcements? I just have one. I was delighted to provide some remarks at, I don't know how many years it's been, but at Relay for Life this past Saturday at Henny Field. Mrs. Hess was there as both a survivor and a caregiver, and I have to tell you it was very moving, and this community applauds and has great respect for the people who have survived cancer, the people who have cared for those who had this debilitating disease, and those we've lost. And it was just a marvelous event, and God blessed us with very nice weather, especially compared to 2016. I wasn't able to stay the whole time, but hope the event was a success, and we look forward to Saline hosting another Relay for Life in this community in 2018. Are there other reports or announcements? Do you have one?
Yes, I have one.
Please.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the city will have 3 council seats on the November 7th ballot, and council packets are available from the clerk's office, and they need to be returned by 4 p.m. on July 25th.
Very good. Other reports or announcements? Wastewater treatment plant. Mr. Campbell, do you want to provide an update?
Sure. So not a lot to report, but we did receive, when I say we, so at the plant as well as through our odor study, complaint from the same address on Saturday referenced a burning plastic smell. The gentleman from Tetra Tech that went to the call, that responded, didn't, in his opinion, was not coming from the plant. But and then also it passed along an odor complaint on Friday or Saturday?
Friday.
Friday, on Friday, which it was a little bit, it was certainly when I went and checked it out as well, and I passed it along to Tetra Tech through Bob, through Mr. Skull, but it was certainly that evening was a little bit odoriferous for sure. So other than that, not a lot. I would, if I could, really quick.
Please.
I'll be sending out, either myself or Al will be sending out an email to council. You may recall, I know some of you that can't already, aren't able to attend, but coming up on Wednesday the 24th, so next Wednesday, we have our field trip to Grand Haven and Grand Rapids to their wastewater treatment plants to check out their odor abatement systems. So we will be leaving here at 7:30 in the morning, hopefully pulling back in about 4:30 in the afternoon. So it's going to be it's going to be quick. But so I will send out just to everybody in case maybe somebody's circumstances have changed and they're able to attend. But I will send that out either this evening or tomorrow. And if you could get back to Al by noon on Wednesday, just so we can make sure we have everything squared away. And I believe we're getting a van for that. So.
Very good. Any questions for the city manager?
I was just going to mention, yeah, I had received a concern about the smell on Saturday at 1:35. Somebody asked me for the phone number, and I'm hoping they called it in, but I'm not sure they did. And then they said it was basically through the whole night.
Okay.
Till the next morning.
Okay, the last item, actually I have two that I forgot to bring up under reports and announcements, but I did want to mention briefly the forthcoming auction at 147 West Michigan Ave. I believe that L or I think it was Al, emailed you that I was notified by the auctioneer that it will be going up for online auction on May the 30th at 2 p.m. I do want to state for the public record, and I think there's been a few press reports about this, and there's certainly been some activity on social media, that the city very much looks forward to working with whoever acquires 147 Michigan Avenue. I firmly believe that that property is of strategic importance within our community and our downtown specifically. I believe that it belongs in the private sector. It belongs on our tax rolls, and I look forward to seeing jobs and amenities produced on that site. But more importantly, the city will work tirelessly with the new deed holder to make sure whatever enterprise is proposed, any enterprise within reason, of course, is successful. So if people have questions or would like to know more about the forthcoming auction, you may go to www.rolloandbrad.com. That's the auction service out of Dundee and Milan. They cover both areas, but of course have been they're on retainer to auction this site. And again, that auction will actually, the auction ends on Tuesday, May 30th by 2 p.m. and it is an online auction. So if you know of anybody who is interested in that site, please encourage them to find out more and know that the city looks forward to working with them to see an important development come to fruition on that site. The final thing that I have are two things, and I know you got an email about both of these. If you'd like to pass those down, Terry, Clerk Roy, if you'd like to pass those down. I have an upcoming coffee hour, which will be taking place this coming Tuesday, not tomorrow, a week from Tuesday, at the library at 3 p.m. The main focus is on meeting our infrastructure needs. We had a similar discussion at my last coffee hour. Attendance was light, but I thought the presentation by staff was excellent. And we are passing out a form. We would like people's feedback. And I'm also going to be including that form in the upcoming FYI newsletter. And then I'm also hosting, I believe it's my 6th annual Saline Senior Conference at the Saline Senior Center on June 16th. If you know of any area senior who would like to participate, encourage them to RSVP to the Senior Center. It is a free event. I think it's enjoyable. You've been there in the past, Mrs. Hess. Informative and a great networking great fellowship opportunities, and I would be delighted if your schedules permitted you to attend specifically around the noon hour for lunch. And again, anything you could do to help me promote those two events would be greatly appreciated. Is there any other items to be brought up during the discussion portion of our agenda this evening?
Just real quick,
Please.
I had someone ask me about the sidewalk replacement. Could we have an update on that as to when it's been scheduled? Individuals have replaced their sidewalks and they're kind of wondering when everyone else is going to get theirs done.
Sure. I know Mr. Fordyce is working on that RFP to send that out, so we're close. What I can do is we'll provide an update. Would you prefer, I guess would council prefer, I could do my weekly communique, we could have an update at the next.
Don't you have them come at the next council
Next meeting would be
Okay.
great.
And it would be televised and most likely picked up by the press as well.
Very good.
Okay. Anything else to be brought up under the discussion portion of our agenda? Then we'll proceed to public comments. Under the Open Meetings Act, any citizen may come forward at this time, make comment or question to City Council. This public comment period will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Anyone who would like to speak is requested but not required to state his or her name and address for the record.
Okay, as far as the bid for the rec center, it shows $159,000, and I would hope that the minutes, or whenever it gets publicized, that this is only a drop in the bucket of the $1 or $1.5 million that will be coming down the road. That's because of and then the other thing is, as far as the Community Foundation workshop, I agree, Mayor, you have started some wonderful task force, one of them the drug and the CQC that we had before. And I'm hoping that as far as the rec center, I would hope that the Saline Community Foundation work group could take on, with your help and guidance, the rec center to the county. And I would definitely go over to a public meeting at the county, and I'm sure many would. As far as get this ball rolling, as far as really seriously asking the county and the taxpayers that are paying this and the school district to get behind this. The other thing is Mr. Tony, he made comments about time is money, and that's very cute. Also, you act in haste, you repent at leisure. And then there's also another one I had, but anyway, haste makes waste. So those are good ones too. As far as the Maple Oaks, I think there are concerns there. I think working with retention ponds does have a problem. And I appreciate the council and the planning commission taking time and looking at the land. I know he looks at it as a realtor. I look at it as far as the land, the people, and also it being properly built on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hess. Additional citizen comments?
I'm looking at your hotel problem that you guys now just approved. I asked earlier to send it back. You guys decided not to. So I'm very disappointed in all of you guys to put something like this through. We're now becoming the next Ann Arbor. So I guess I can say Saline's Ann Arbor now, because we have a movie theater and we have a Ruby Tuesdays and everything. So when I tell people that I live here in Saline, I'm just going to call it Ann Arbor or Detroit, because you guys really disappointed me.
Thank you, Mr. Rockwell. Additional citizen comments?
John Olson, Saline Area Chamber of Commerce. We're actually coming up on this year's CTAP grant, which is, for those who don't know, Community Tourism Action Plan. It's a grant that we started with the IPSI CVB, Convention and Visitors Bureau, I tend to use acronyms, and is now part of the Washtenaw CVB. And we are about ready to go before the review board, and we have 3 projects slated that we're looking at. The first, we will create historic banners that we can put up downtown. They will depict our timeline through history. On each one of those will be a number or something, so that you're not just seeing a picture of Orange Risden or the Davenport House or whatever, but you'll have a number that you can go to, and we'll kick them over to Visit Saline, which we also created with one of our previous grants, and that will allow us to let people have a vision of what our community is, and if they go to the website, they'll get a broader description as opposed to just a picture. So we hope to run those down through the town. We also plan to, there's a walking historic map that the city created a while ago. We hope to update that and get more copies of that back out, because we've added walking trails and we've added all kinds of things that we can put on that. And then the third thing that we want to do is the Art Around Saline project that you guys heard from earlier. If this all goes through, we hope to add 4 more to that this year, and allow that to expand some. That is our hope and dream, but we have to get approved for that grant. That being said, I just want to say I have to thank goodness that we live in a community where we have for decades had so many groups such as the Chamber, such as the Saline Downtown Merchants Association, Saline Main Street, and many other groups have a focus on our downtown and have helped to make it into the Saline that we have today, which is a great place to come and live, work, and play. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Additional citizen comments? Then please note our upcoming meetings. Next Monday, we are having an Economic Development 101 Summit with some folks from Ann Arbor Spark. We've also invited our economic development boards as well as some folks from the Chamber and Main Street. That begins at 6:30 here in Council Chambers. I just confirmed with the city manager, we may or may not have a work meeting on the 5th of June. We'll confirm that with you all. But we will have a regular meeting at 7:30, and then our second meeting of June will be at 7:30 on the 19th. We've already excused the absence of Councilwoman Mitchell, so the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:52 p.m.
So moved.
Moved by Dillon. Is there a second? Seconded, was that McClellan?
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.